Welcome back to the Scotti-BYTE channel, and this is Scott. So today I want to take on one of my all-time nemesis, which happens to be RocketChat. And RocketChat can be very problematic to install and sometimes even to maintain. And in this video, I'm going to show an easy way to install RocketChat in the first half. And then in the second half of the video, I'm going to show how to back up and restore a RocketChat database to another server. So with that in mind, let's head on down to the command prompt and let's begin by installing RocketChat into an Incus container. So here we're doing an Incus launch images :Ubuntu /2404 RocketChat with the default profile, the bridge profile, which is mentioned in Incus containers step by step, boot.autostart equals to true, and since RocketChat is a Docker application, we're using security.nesting equal to true as well. Now that our container is created, we're going to go ahead and shell into it with Incus shell RocketChat. And the very first thing you should do on a new container is an apt update, && apt upgrade, and we're going to do the -y so we do not get prompted. And this container is completely up to date. Let's install our dependencies, and since the shell command connects us to the root account, we don't need the sudo command. So we're going to do an apt install on the OpenSSH server, which we're going to use to copy some files via Simple File Transfer Protocol, SFTP, which is part of OpenSSH server. We're going to install NetTools to have a nicely formatted version of the ifconfig command, and then we're going to install curl and also the nano editor. Basically, when you create a container, containers are very lean, and so you have to install most everything you're going to need. Since RocketChat is a Docker application, we're going to install Docker from the script on the Docker website. With Docker installed, I'm going to go ahead and create myself a user account with an add user, Scott. We're going to give Scott a password. And we'll go ahead and add Scott to the sudo group with the user mod -a, capital G, sudo Scott. And likewise, so we don't have to provide a sudo command in order to run Docker commands, I'm going to go ahead and add Scott to the Docker group as well. Let's go ahead and su over to the Scott account, and the dash says not only move over to the Scott account, but move over to the Scott account's home folder, which is the Scott folder. And we can do a pwd for permanent working directory, and you can see that I'm in /home/Scott. So I'm going to do a make dir on RocketChat. I'll cd into RocketChat. Next, we create a Docker compose file with a nano on docker-compose.yml. And we're going to go ahead and paste in the contents of the Docker compose file. And let's take a look at this to find out what it's doing. So to begin with, I have two services in this, actually three services, because I have a RocketChat service at the top, and this is the actual application that runs RocketChat. And it's pretty straightforward. It uses port 3000 by default. I have my root URL set up, so that means that I went out to my domain name service provider and I created a domain name, rocketchat.scotti-byte.com. And then this container references the Mongo database through this string here, which is another environment variable. And it is also setting up a replica set, which is a recommended methodology for using RocketChat. And even though I don't really technically need a replica set for my database, it's something that they advise. And then this depends on the Mongo container. So Mongo database is the database I'm using, and here I'm using Mongo version 7.0, which is the latest supported version of Mongo in RocketChat. So one thing about Mongo database is it's very important to set your Mongo database to one particular value and not to latest, because there are steps you need to take in order to migrate RocketChat from one version of Mongo to another version of Mongo. However, if you'll notice here in the RocketChat, we actually specify the latest tag because that's how we'll upgrade RocketChat as new versions come out. But it's not really a requirement to keep Mongo up to date to the latest version. And there is also a command down here which sets the replication set for Mongo. And then we have this thing that's called the Mongo init replica, and it goes out and also launches the Mongo container, but it does so in order to create what's called the replica set, and that is a requirement as well. And then this depends on Mongo. So that's basically all that we have in this Docker Compose. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Control-O and Enter to write the file out, and a Control-X to exit the Nano editor. To start our brand new RocketChat server, we'll do a Docker Compose up-D, and that will go ahead and get the Mongo init replica, and the RocketChat containers pulled down from the website, and then create them, and we'll be ready to go. Now that RocketChat has been started, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of simple commands. The first thing I'm going to do is a Docker PS. And even though the 3 containers have started, the replica set container will go ahead and start up, and then it will shut down after a few seconds. And it's just going out and making sure everything is up and running. So what we end up with is we end up with the database container for the Mongo database, and we end up with a RocketChat container. One of the things we can do is a Docker Compose logs-f, and that'll go ahead and follow the RocketChat installation that took place and the starting of the container. And we can scroll through here and see that we have lots and lots and lots of log data. But we don't have anything in particular that is important, except for this section here that's pretty close to the beginning of the log. And it basically calls out the fact that we're running the latest version of RocketChat, which is version 7.1.0. It calls out the version of Node.js, and the fact that we're running MongoDB version 7.0. And later versions of RocketChat use MongoDB with the Wired Tiger database engine after approximately RocketChat version 5.0, and versions before RocketChat 5.0 use the MongoDB Nmap engine. But we don't have to worry about that now because we're running a later version of RocketChat. After doing a Control-C to get out of Docker Compose logs-f, I'm going to do an ifconfig command, And here you can see that our IP address on my main LAN is 172.16.1.210. Headed on up to my web browser, here's my Nginx proxy manager. I'm going to go ahead and click on proxy host, and down here you notice chat.scotti-BYTE.com, which is my production version of RocketChat. But we're going to go ahead and add a new proxy, and the proxy that we're going to add is for the DNS name that we mentioned that I created earlier at my DNS provider, which is RocketChat.Scotti-BYTE.com. And I hit a tab to make that, go ahead and enter. And then I'm going to type in 172.16.1.210. And then I'm going to go over here to the forward port. And as you'll recall, it was port number 3000. I'll go ahead and turn on WebSocket support and turn on block common exploits. I head over here to the SSL tab and request a new certificate and agree to the Let's Encrypt terms of service. And I click the Save button, and it goes ahead and requests a certificate from Let's Encrypt and creates my new entry in Nginx Proxy Manager. Now that that's taken place, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down and find RocketChat.Scotti-BYTE.com, move over to the right side and do an edit. Here in the edit, I want to move over to the SSL tab and turn on Force SSL, HTTP/2 support, and I'll go ahead and enable HSTS and do a save. And now we're done with Nginx Proxy Manager. Let's head over to a new tab in our web browser and type in RocketChat.Scotti-BYTE.com, and this will go ahead and bring up the ability to launch your workspace for the initial configuration. So I'll go ahead and type in Scott Thompson, and my username is going to be, in this case, Scotti-BYTE, and my email is going to be vmsman at, let's see, Scotti-BYTE.com. And I'll go ahead and create a password. Let's see. Let's try something I can remember. Yeah, let's do that. And then go ahead and click Next. And it brings up that wonderful chime. And so then they're looking for an organization name. And I'll go ahead and say Scotti-BYTE Enterprise Consulting Services, or SECS. We'll go ahead and select Consulting as the organization industry, and the size will be 1 to 10 people. And then the country, we'll scroll down and find United States, which is going to be towards the end of the list. I wish I could just type in at the top, but I've discovered that really doesn't do anything very well. So I'll go ahead and select US and click Next. I'll go ahead and type in my admin email as vmsman at Scotti-BYTE.com. And I agree with the terms and register my workspace. And it provides me a security code, and it says that it is sent email to vmsman at Scotti-BYTE.com. The email that I get from RocketChat invites me to verify my registration, and I'll go ahead and click on Verify Registration, and it says that email is confirmed. And once we head back to the web page, you can see here that it says that the RocketChat instance has been started now that I've verified my email and it has registered the workspace. I have a new message in the general group. If we click the general group, the new message is that I have joined the channel. In the second half of this video, we're going to talk about what it will take in order to migrate an existing installation of RocketChat to a new server, or perhaps just how to do a backup and a restore. So the very first thing we want to do is SSH over to my existing version of RocketChat, which is at a local DNS name of RocketChat. So here we are on my server, and I'll CD into RocketChat. So this is my existing production version of RocketChat that is located at chat.scotti-BYTE.com, which everybody watching should be connected to and discussing issues and asking questions on. So if we do an ls here, we have a Docker Compose YAML file, and we have an uploads folder, a Docker folder, and a data folder. Let's go ahead and Shift Control O to open another window in my same terminal, and let's SSH over to 172.16.1.210 and go ahead and enter my password for the new RocketChat server that we just built and CD down into RocketChat. And now in this window, if we go ahead and do an ls, likewise, we're going to see a data and a Docker Compose and an uploads. You're not going to see the Docker folder because that is associated with some of the legacy work that I had been doing on my old server. So for right now, we're going to go ahead and close the window to the new terminal. I just wanted you to see what there was there in contrast with what we have above. So I'll go ahead and close that. And now I'm back here on my production RocketChat server. So in order to do a backup and recovery, what we need to do is, first of all, do a Docker PS. And here you can see that the container ID for Mongo 7.0 is the number that I've highlighted there. And in my example, I'm going to do a backup of the database. And the way that I'll do that is with this command here, and I'll go ahead and wipe out this old container ID I had here in my template, and we'll go ahead and double click this and do a Shift Control C and a Shift Control V, and that will go ahead and insert the container ID there. So what this command will do is docker exec the ID of the Mongo container, and we execute the command mongo dump, and it goes ahead and looks into the location of the database inside of the container, and it creates an archive file. So now we're actually creating a backup of that database, and it's done that quickly. The second thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and, again, because I don't remember it, I'll do a Docker PS, and we're going to do a second command to copy the archive that we just created outside of the container. And so we're going to similarly back up here, and we're going to delete that template container ID. We'll do a Shift Control copy and a Shift Control V, and then we have a Docker copy from that container /data/db mongodb underbar backup.archive, which is the file we created, and then I'll leave a space and put dot, which just means copy the file name, but copy it outside of the container. And it says it's successfully copied, and my current database size for my existing RocketChat server is 891 megabytes. So if I do an ls-al at this point, we have that mongo backup.archive file here. For those of you that like a graphical interface, I went ahead and I fired up my Nemo file manager, and in this left-hand window here you can see that I did an SFTP : / over to my RocketChat /home/Scott/RocketChat. So SFTP is a protocol that comes along as part of OpenSSH server, and I've mentioned it on the channel several times before. Now that we've navigated into the RocketChat folder, you should recognize the data, Docker, and uploads folders, as well as the Docker compose file, and now our mongo backup.archive file. Over in the right-hand window, we did an SFTP over to the address of the new RocketChat server, which I do not have a DNS name for, at 172.16.1.210, and similarly, we navigated into home Scott RocketChat. So what I'm going to do is drag this archive from the left window over to the right window, and it will copy that from my RocketChat production server over to the new RocketChat server that we just created. And it has moved that almost 900 megabyte file just that quickly. And notice that I'm running on a desktop. I talked to one machine, which was my RocketChat server, and then I talked to another machine, which is the new RocketChat server, and it was able to do that copy. So now we can go ahead and log off of the production RocketChat server, and we'll do an SSH over to 172.16.1.210, which is the new RocketChat server. We'll go ahead and provide our password, and we'll cd into RocketChat, and we'll do an ls, and there you can see that we've moved MongoDB _backup.archive over here. Let's do a docker ps command, and you'll see that we have the two containers, the RocketChat container and the Mongo container. This time I'm going to go ahead and grab a copy of the container name as opposed to the container ID, and they're pretty much interchangeable, but at this point I'm going to go ahead and do a docker stop on the RocketChat server, but I'm going to leave the database server up and running. So now the RocketChat server has been stopped, and if we do a docker ps, you'll see that there is only one container currently up and running, and that is the Mongo database. Let's go ahead and copy our backup archive inside of the Mongo container, and we'll do that with this command, although we're going to need to get rid of this template ID, and just for convenience I could type in RocketChat Mongo, and in fact let's do that this time. Let's do a Shift-Control-C and a Shift-Control-V, and rather than using the container ID, I'm using the name of the container, which is RocketChat-Mongo-1. So it says it successfully copied it inside of the container itself. And the next thing to do is to do a restore of the database. So we'll use this command, which is going to be a docker exec, and again we can use either the name of the container or the ID. Let's go ahead and use the ID this time. I do a Shift-Control-C and a Shift-Control-V, and now I have a docker exec Mongo restore from that particular archive. And now we're restoring the database into our new instance of RocketChat that we just built. Now that the database has been restored, let's do a Docker compose down, and it goes ahead and stops RocketChat. And then let's do a Docker compose up --build -d, and that will go ahead and recreate all of the containers and start RocketChat back up. And now if I head on over to my RocketChat again, I've logged out and logged back in, and here you can see that I have the current conversation and all of the information that's in it. Now my room ownership, because I recreated my Scotti-BYTE account here, is not the same, and so I would have to go ahead and join my names. And so if I look at the directory, you can see that I have all of the rooms in here. So for example, if I chose the Incus room and clicked on it, it would go ahead and display that to me. And of course I can join that name and have it in here. Trying to remember exactly what that command is, but I think I can go over here and, oh yes, down at the bottom it says join. So I can go ahead and join it, and it's in the group, and as you can see, we have everything in there. So we have a successful migration of a RocketChat server from one server to another. Now the main constraints of this is that you have to make sure that the version of MongoDB matches and also the version of RocketChat matches, because the database movement between the systems is dependent upon that. And so we do have some ability to mess with that, so to speak. And if I go down here and I do a nano on docker-compose.yml, when I created this original server, let's suppose that our MongoDB on the server we want to migrate used either Mongo 5 or Mongo 6. You could change that here. And then also in regards to the RocketChat version, you could put a specific tag on this server, but my best advice that I can give you, or a best practice, would be to go to your existing RocketChat server and update it to the latest version in regards to RocketChat. The main thing that's really going to be important, though, is that we have the same version of Mongo before you migrate the database. So one thing that you may have noticed in this video is that when we migrated to the new RocketChat server, we registered a new workspace. It may be possible to migrate to an existing workspace, but I found that if you migrate to a new workspace, it might be easier to change back to your other workspace name once you complete the migration of your server. Anyway, that's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe and like to the channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell because it really helps the channel out. And we'll see you next time.